You might have forgotten who you are, or you might believe that humankind has forgotten who they are. But that's not true. That's not going on for you, and it's not going on for our world. Nothing happens in your life or in our world. Nothing, it's not accidental, none of it. It's a universal cooperation that we all have. And so we decide, are we going to cooperate? And how we cooperate is to remember who we are. And remembering is when we were born, when we before we came into the world in the womb, we knew, oh, we had everything. We could become anyone we wanted, or we might have remembered that when we were children, but then we forget it because we come into the world and then we get hypnotized by everything that exists and everyone else who has come before. And then we can forget our inherent worth and value. And then over time, over centuries, as our civilizations change, more and more people keep forgetting who they are. And then we end up in a chaotic world, which is where we are now. But then when we decide to remember, we can change everything. Because, see, when you remember, what happens is you become confident, you become courageous, you become abundant, you become connected to all that is, and you know that you have worth and value. And that's why you're alive. But sometimes it's challenging to say those words or to remember them for all of us. And then we have to think about, well, why was I born? And today I posted something that said, you might be ready to step into your life purpose. And that's what I'm doing now. We never know who we're going to become, and who you can become is completely unlimited. It's up to you because it's in your consciousness. Every human has it, and every human can use it in any way that they choose. But sometimes we don't do that, that we forget. And then when we forget, we become angry and we become frustrated, and then we will blame everyone else for the conditions of our lives or our world. But the fact is, it is because we have forgotten who we are. We've forgotten how inherently powerful and brilliant we are because we were supposed to learn that as we lived our lives. But because we had society that was always telling us something different, and it was so close to us because many times it was right in our families, we could see it, or it's our friends, whatever it was. So then how do you remember who you are? Well, we create something new, and that's what I did. I created something new. I didn't know what I was doing all of my life because I had so many different careers and jobs and all sorts of things that I went through. And I experienced every difficult, challenging, horrible thing that anybody can imagine. But then I did something else. I started receiving other information from a higher source, from cosmic guidance. And then what that did is it healed me in ways that I can't even explain, but I will be able to explain it soon because I'm going to write about all of it. That's the other thing we discover when we figure out something, when we know something about life or living, then we must give it to others because that's how our world evolves and becomes better. And that's what I'm doing now. When I've spoken about my program, your last development program, I said it was based off of philosophy, which it is, and it's called Your Life Operating Instructions. And I was given that information because the world was moving through a transition. And we were going to see a lot of things that weren't going to serve us anymore. And they were all going to be coming from us, meaning that we're holding on to things that no longer serve creating a better world. And then we don't create better lives if we don't own who we are. And I can say this because I've held back forever, but it was different for me because I didn't know what I had done. You don't know either. You don't know what you've created because it's always in front of us. But then when we discover it and still hold back and we're not willing to love ourselves, then we have trouble. And that's what I've had as well. So I do understand it. But I'm changing that now. See, because the philosophy that I was given was meant for this tremendous change that we're all moving through in our world. And the more of us who do it, we start to live better lives, and then we'll see a better world. And most people will listen to that and say, that's not even possible. Well, you won't be the people who would do this because, see, you're still believing in a limitation or you're still believing in a restriction that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist because it's all in our thinking. And I've written about all of it for the last 35 years. I've written all of it. And then I put it into my life and I began to heal. And then I gave it to others and they began to heal. So then you have to decide, well, am I going to do that as well? Because the more of us who do that, then we stop wars. We stop killing other people. We stop denigrating other races, and we stop denigrating women, and we start to see all others as equal. But we can only do that when we see ourselves that way first. And that's the journey. And that's the journey that I took. That's why I know that it works. And then I know the result that comes out. You come out of it and you start experiencing mind body healing that you didn't know you could do. You start to see yourself in a new way, and you start to see the world in a new way. And you're no longer afraid, and you're confident, and you're courageous, and you're empowered. And I know that it happens because that's what happened for me. Now, the last thing that I had to do, though, was come to believe it just like you do. You see, that's the only difference. The only difference, the only difficulty any of us experience in our lives is that self-belief. Now, you may not get to that self-belief because you can't even see what your vision is. You can't even see what you're meant to do in this world, or you can't see that next higher position that you know you're supposed to go to, because you have to break through this barrier that exists in your consciousness. But then as the world is evolving, we have to move through that as well. We're not doing anything individually, we're doing it collectively. And so the more of us who decide that we're going to move to this higher state of understanding within ourselves, then the world does the same thing. That's the only way that it works. There's no one else that's going to change anything except us individually. We can think of our governments or leaders or all of that. It's never that, because everything is energy and we all possess the same amount. It just depends on how much we're willing to access and use. And sometimes it can be challenging. And I'm saying that because it was for me. But now at 73 years old, what I'm doing is leaving this work with everyone, and those who take it, they will change their lives and they will become happy, and they will remember who they are, and they will remember themselves as people who came onto the planet to become happy, to become abundant, to be in love, to have great relationships, and to create something from their own being that's going to make a contribution to the world. And I know everyone has that. And so now that I have a pathway for everyone to get there, I can start becoming my authentic self and fulfill my purpose, which is guiding others to do the same thing. The more of us who reach that higher state of understanding, we see very different lives for ourselves and a very different world. And that's what I'm doing. But just know that everything was given to you. There is no reason for you to ever suffer or struggle or be in lack. None of those things exist, because they're energetic restrictions that you've accepted. And once we break through them, then you live this really great life, and then more people will do the same. And that's what we're doing now. It's time for you to love who you are and become your full embodied person, your authentic self. And I have the path for anyone who wants to do it. And I know that it works because it's worked for me and many, many others. So you just have to question whether or not you're going to do it. Even if it's not with me, are you going to step up to however you're meant to live in this world, and what is your potential? And if you're not experiencing this great life, then you haven't found it yet. That's all. Or you are unwilling to live it. And I can say that because I was unwilling to live it for the longest time. And I never want to see anyone else do that, because then you don't have the life you're meant to have, and we don't have the world that we're supposed to evolve into. See you soon.